Thank you for tuning in to Beverly Hills to Barnyard. I'm your host, Sherita Herring, and you're listening to the WCEG Network on WCEG or watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, and the WCEG Network. We're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like WCEG on Facebook, follow on Twitter or Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Last but not least, the topics and questions are those of the show hosts and guests and not the WCEG Network. Thank you so much for your continued support. And again, I'm Sherita Herring. Let's just get right to it. I have an amazing guest that not only am I excited to bring you, Mr. James Wiggins. We've been working together recently on his nonprofit, and I just have realized just how interesting his job is. So let me give you a little history about him. Since 1987, James has served as a private investigator, providing business management, case intake and analysis, reviewing reports, identifying witnesses, creation of a witness list, background investigations, public record searching, and more. As a criminal defense investigator, James has collected evidence for a defense attorney to use when representing defendants on trial. And I could go on, but instead of doing that, because we've got a lot of information that I want to cover with him, I just want to bring you on and to meet my very, very special guest and friend, James Wiggins. James, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you for being on, and I'm so excited for you to just let people know what you do. First of all, you're in Los Angeles?
Absolutely.
Yeah. James, is that home for you?
That is a loaded question, and the fact that, like most people, we migrated here in 1966, 67 from Chicago by way of Mississippi. But this has been my home now, and we moved from Chicago to Watts, following the migrant trail, and then ending up 6 months later in Compton, which was a mecca for our people.
Yeah. You know what? Speaking of Compton, and this is not to do with your business, but you're planning something special for your class reunion coming up, right?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm tickled pink to talk about it. Last night, I was working with the 50th reunion committee for the class of 1974. So we are looking at fundraising. And I realized that I work with some very amazing people. And I look forward to contributing not only as an investigator, historical researcher, but as a person trying to support a positive energy and image for the city of Compton, which haven't had that type of publicity. And the more I talk to people, the more I find that my nonprofit is there to serve that community and any other. We have a history that's tainted, but we can repaint the canvas by utilizing our experiences and the tools that we have today to help the children of the future.
Yeah, well, that says a whole lot. James, what's your school for your reunion? What school did you graduate from?
Compton High School.
Oh, okay. Okay. So now to your professional life. What kind of professional services do you offer as an investigator?
As an investigator, it touches almost every aspect of everyone's life. It could be missing person, child custody matter. One parent has custody and they give a visitation to a non-custodial parent, and that non-custodial parent runs off with the child. So I've done a lot of that. I've worked almost every aspect of investigations, but the most common, I made a list and still came up short. Civil law. Everyone is familiar with civil law. Most people
Oh,
are
not
familiar.
really.
Oh, really? Well,
Explain that a little.
say that civil law would be any contract dispute. You could almost say landlord tenant, automobile accidents. It, it is very wide, but I a wide area of law there, and to try and list it all would almost take up all our time.
But tell me this, James,
Mhm.
while with my listeners, can they contact you if they're having some civil law issues or any of the issues that we're going to be talking about?
Absolutely. I think it's important as long as you have an idea what your problem is, and even if you don't know what your problem is, to consult with an investigator as well as an attorney. Most attorneys, they handle the law in the courtroom, trial preparation, and
Mhm.
a lot of times the successful case is determined with litigation support, which the private investigator supplies.
Well, now, James, tell me this then, because me personally, some years ago, we had to fight a case with my son, and the public defender was not doing his job. And so I got online and did a lot of things. Would that have been one of those cases where I could have called you and paid you to be a consultant with me?
Actually, most people don't know that for an indigent defendant, someone that doesn't have the financial uh,
Means.
abilities,
Uh-huh.
they receive a court appointed attorney.
Hmm.
And they can also receive a court appointed investigator if the case is going to trial.
My son was going to trial.
Yeah, the public defender's office is one of those, I'll say, limbo zones because they are so overworked, and that they don't really have the time to put into an adequate defense case. Sometimes
Okay.
it's sad, but that's our system.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
I
I would have been of help, and that's one of the reasons my nonprofit is important, because now instead of worrying about funding from the family, from the court, uh, my nonprofits will seek to provide those necessary services to find information that, if it doesn't uh, free the person, at least mitigate the case so that there's a reduced sentence,
Mhm.
and bring together a team of people, which is what I do. I look to bring in a team of people to make an appearance so that this person doesn't stand alone.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Well, all right. Well, now, so and what are the other kinds of cases after civil?
Oh, civil, criminal today, criminal law has changed due to the digital world. You have cell tower pinging, cyber security, people trying to get your information, and also digital forensics, which is new. And
Hmm.
in the federal cases that I've been working, the attorneys that I've been working with are really battling the digital forensics, which is your cell phone. Everything that you do, everywhere you go, your cell phone will tell on you,
Whether you're on it or not.
whether you're on it or not. If you use Google Maps, which I do, so that I can go back and see where I've been,
Hmm.
what time I did it, and it helps me to track whatever I'm tracking for a case, or just go back to see where I was at this time. With these cases, your 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 location, you take a picture, it's there. You send a text, it's there. When you link your telephone to your car, it's there. So I can go back and look at your cell phone. And once I look at your cell phone, I know who you are. You know, your behavior, where you like to eat. You pass by the 7-Eleven because it picked up your Wi-Fi and it's showing on your Wi-Fi. And so
Wow.
right now, the law enforcement is using these tools against defendants, and there are very few people that understand how to utilize this for defense purposes as well. And I've had the pleasure of just jumping in, uh, uh, obtaining the software, and then taught myself how to generate the reports, which in several cases have proved very helpful.
Okay.
And then after that, I would say family law. Everybody knows family law, child custody, divorce, temporary restraining orders. General investigations would include probate matters, public record searching, and product liability, intellectual law, environmental law, estate planning. So, and then there's a lot of little areas in between where if you don't know the answer to a question, a private investigator would be able to help you find that answer.
Okay, so tell me this. Would a person contact you through their lawyer, or suppose a person doesn't have a lawyer? What would be that process?
And my nonprofit answers that question. We are going to provide a legal resource center. So I have at least one attorney that's on board, and I'm looking at another attorney I spoke with last night. He's a class member. He was the president of the class of 74, and he is involved with nonprofits, but he's a very talented videographer too. So he doesn't realize that as I look for grants and I go through and he's telling me about his video projects that he's going to put on Facebook, and I'm thinking, Oscar, don't think, I tell people, don't think small, think big. And I was taught that I had no limits by my grandmother, so I have no ceilings. So anytime someone talks to me and they start talking about one thing, and they tell me level 1, and I'm already at level 15 out of 100, and that's within the first 10 minutes. And that comes as a result of your training in the nonprofit and my upbringing in a household where a lady that had no education that said you can do anything you can conceive.
And James, that brings to mind, and I've talked about it before, a lot of people don't realize that legal aid in the States are covered by grants. And so that those lawyers can provide the services to those that need it, the public defenders, for free, because those lawyers aren't working for free. They're paid by funding through the state. And so what you're doing, and this is what a lot of lawyers are missing out on, instead of turning clients away, if you also had a nonprofit, you could be your own legal aid, and grants can be covering your costs so that you can help those that need you but don't have the financial resources. So I'm honored to be helping you to develop your nonprofit to help those that otherwise would not have your assistance. So now, general investigative services, Is that duplicating what you've already talked about, or is that something different as far as your public record searching and that kind of thing?
It's a more specialized area because someone will come to you with a very unique situation that you never, that they've never experienced, or you may not have ever experienced. I I actually obtained my license in '87. I started working as a credit investigator in 1980, and I was licensed by the state. And a credit investigator does skip tracing, help people recover uh, anything that is legally recoverable. So
Like if somebody has stolen my identity or something, is that what you mean?
I see that's one of those unique scenarios. I will sit down with you, get overview, outline your case, and then come back and give you a unique example of what we can do or outline of possible avenues to pursue uh, uh, to obtain our joint goal.
Okay. Okay.
I work with several Black attorneys that I am so proud to work with. One is a nationally known attorney, Milton Grimes. And since I've worked with Milton, I met him back in Orange County back in the mid 80s, and he was becoming very popular. And since that time, he has become, I heard an attorney last month call him, or this month, call him the GOAT. But in order for him to do what's necessary, it is expensive. He has shown me his process of sitting down, getting to know a client, representing them not only from the legal, but from a humanizing. So he wants to humanize in the court because you're dehumanized, you're a criminal. And Mr. Grimes is really a GOAT. We've He's head of a trial lawyer college. He works juvenile cases and everything civil and criminal as well. And Kenneth Reed in Orange County. He grew up in the Carson area. Uh, as a child, I went to church with his parents in Compton, and Kenneth is works in the federal court, so I get to work a lot of federal cases from bank fraud, international money laundering to almost anything that you can think of that's happening in society today. And I will be able to go to them and say, that case that they can't afford, maybe I can help them over here at JWA Foundation.
Absolutely. And and that just brings to mind your job training piece that's going to be under there. Because a lot of cases are sitting stale because they just don't have the manpower to do the kind of work that you do. So your job training piece for those that have a yearning to research and to help solve cases, this is where your JWA Foundation will be able to train those individuals and work along with those cases. Because you know what, James, was crazy? Um, I was working with another nonprofit I was developing some years ago, and more young people are looking to go into law enforcement, not as an officer, not as a lawyer, but to be investigative. They want to learn how to investigate cases, and this is going to be perfect for you and your new foundation.
I find the best investigators are women. That natural curiosity.
I thought you were nosy.
No, I'm not nosy. I think that is female intuition.
Okay.
It is something that is a God given, and for me, I utilize it. I've been taught by the women in my in my life, my mother, my grandmother, aunts, and cousins to
Mm-hmm.
follow that nose. And I first really picked up on that when I saw an infant who had no language skill, who maybe about 7 months. Somebody came in the room, the baby cried. And when they left the room, the baby quit crying. And I was like, what was that? And I was only maybe about 4 or 5 myself. And when the person came back in the room, the baby cried again. And since then, after 42 years of martial arts, I have learned that is the energy that
Something had happened with that person and that baby.
that person that I'm talking about just had a negative life force. And you could,
Wow.
when they walked in the room, you could feel it. You
Oh
know,
my gosh. And the
we
baby
all
felt
do it.
the baby felt it.
A baby, yeah. So that was another thing that led me to be who I am. And then once I started getting formally trained, I got to the who, what, when, where, and why. So every time I meet someone, it's always who, what, when, where, and why. Who, what, when, where, and why. Left, right, up, down, everywhere I go. And as an investigator now, I walk in my ability to evaluate someone is just built in. And
Wow. That's part of your
you
martial arts experience also.
in the Missionary Baptist Church of Greenwood, Mississippi. My grandmother was on the motherboard, and I was her shadow.
Which is
And
God,
so,
is God.
yeah, it's God. The spiritual element is in everything we do. So when someone talks to me, I hear what they say, but I also feel the words. And
Wow.
as an investigator, you cannot disguise the emotional elements or content beneath the words that are said. So someone will say something to me, and I said, that's not their words. That's this person's word. If I know who they're talking about, or I'll tell them, it sounds like you're talking from your mother's point of view or something. And they're like, how did you know that? A little birdie,
So now what types of services do other types of services do private investigators provide?
Oh, the just like the different types of law, um, most investigators is based upon their background. Like you said, there are a lot of young people that are interested in the law. Right now, the law enforcement will get you trained criminally. Civil, if you go to school and study criminal justice, you can choose what field to go in. Right now, the cyber element of investigation, Norton, identity theft. I have every Norton product you can think of and still don't know how to use them all, but I'm on my way. But knowing that there's fire investigations, so arson. Uh, we talked about civil, criminal, uh, counterintelligence. So now with counterintelligence, you're talking about CIA, military, and right now we need all counterintelligence investigators we can get because of the state of this country. The world is has been turned topsy turvy. So we need people to stabilize and to prepare us for the truth. That's what investigators do. We seek the truth, whether it's beneficial or not to our client. The attorney has to have information to succeed. Identity theft, like I said, with cyber investigation, insurance companies investigate uh, insurance policies if they feel that there's fraud. I've done in the past tobacco defense. A lot of people said, how could you defend a tobacco company? Well, at that time, I was a smoker and I was like a 22-year-old, 24-year-old flying around the country
But
to
they don't
do.
take away your cigarettes.
Yeah, well, I gave them up. As a matter of fact, I'm celebrating for my 50th birthday. I gave up cigarette smoking cold turkey, so
Oh,
it was
congratulations.
easy. Yeah, thank you. You know, so far, no count, no bad effects, or residual effects from smoking. But I did stay very active. Coming from Compton, we played basketball,
Hmm.
football, baseball all the time. And then once I in 83, 80, I started studying martial arts, and it completely changed me. I didn't want to go to the military for a discipline,
Hmm.
and I needed a discipline. And for years, I had watched Chinese martial arts, and now uh, I help teach people with internal martial arts rather than the external. Externals, the punching, the kicking, the blocking. And
Hmm.
I focus on meditation, breathing, and the internal elements of it.
Now, you also, I know in working with you, I learned that you work with libraries.
Ah,
How
yeah.
do you work with libraries?
At this point, I have in 1980 when I started as a credit investigator, and then 2 years later, a private investigator working for a firm, we had our own libraries, reference libraries, which we can say were our computers of the time. They consisted of city directories, reverse city directories, and microfiche of every known source of information that we could ascertain, real who owned a business, who owned real estate, what lawsuits were filed, and registered.
Libraries have that?
Absolutely. If you go to your historical library, like I've been working with the LA Public Library and the State of California Library for 20 years or so. And LA Public Library had a devastating fire, and those books that I used to work with back in the 80s, as people started to move into the digital world or online CD-ROMs, I obtained every library that I own, which is over my shoulder. And I sold LA Public Library 110 books out of my collection. And
Wow.
now I'm going to get rid of my book collection and just focus in on the microfiche collection, which will be done under my nonprofit to preserve California history. And there are various other states that I have microfiche for: Texas, Colorado,
Wow.
Washington. And the information now is one of a kind. You can't find it. Even LA Public, the Superior Court has microfiche from I have microfiche from 1875 through 2009.
Wow. Wow. Well, James, we're getting to the close of the show. Um, it saddens me sometimes that we go so fast through the time, but how can someone reach you?
Well, I can be reached via email or phone. I am going to provide an email address if anyone's interested, and
Mhm.
that'll be my personal email, because I think when you deal with someone, you need to hear their voice, get a feel for who they are. And my email is jm_Wiggins at yahoo.com. And
JM underscore
J,
Wiggins, Wiggins,
absolutely, at Yahoo.
at Yahoo. And what phone number can they call you?
My personal cell phone is 213-725-4708. And
One more
my
time, please.
213-725-4708.
Great, great, great. Well, James,
And
really,
I like to provide my business phone as well.
well, let me have that real quick.
It's 323 464 5208.
One time again.
323 464 5208.
Well, James, I want to thank you so much for being on. And obviously, like so many of my other guests, well, you've got so much more information to share, and I invite you to come back. I want to thank you again for being on and investigating and doing all the wonderful work that you do. And for my listeners, I hope that you garnered a lot of information today from Mr. James Wiggins, who I will have return. And we'll talk to you more about his nonprofit also. Have an absolutely wonderful day. And again, James, thank you for being on with me today.
Thank you.